All right. Look, Cliff, we only got about 5 minutes left here, so let's get into this.
Yes.
You have a podcast, and
I do,
and people should
in fact,
check it out.
had
Unprecedented.
they should listen today. We had Malcolm Nance on.
Malcolm Nance was
and,
on today.
He offers some interesting ideas.
But about apparently a week or two ago, and I heard quite a bit about it. You had on David Frum. Now, for people who don't know who David Frum is, he was a former speechwriter for George W. Bush. He's the one who came up with the axis of evil for his speechwriting. In his speech, he sometime during the Obama administration, he sort of got kicked out of the conservative movement for being less than heterodox, or maybe being too heterodox. And he is now a big never Trumper and fan of some in the resistance. And my question to you is, how could you platform this guy?
Well, I'll start with, I didn't have him on because I'm a fan, or I guess you're saying he's a fan of people in the resistance, or they're a fan of his?
No, some people are fans of his. I mean,
I'm a fan of what he's doing right now. I had him on for two reasons, which I'll be very clear about. One is, quite honestly and quite sort of in a straightforward manner, this country was attacked by Vladimir Putin, who is somebody who is in his own country, I would think everything that we would all hate. And I don't understand sometimes people on elements, not everybody, but some people on the left who are just like, you're just trying to start a Cold War again. As if this guy, hasn't interfered in elections throughout the West and tried to undermine the NATO alliance and tried to do things that will lead to sort of his vision of a world where he's kind of this global leader of white supremacy at this point to increase. And here, I had Frum on, and people were like, well, why didn't you hit him over the Iraq War? I had him on for two reasons. One is, a lot of us, including maybe us on this show, laughed. Donald Trump was never going to be elected president. Well, we were wrong. He is president. And he's undermining democratic norms constantly. So to me right now, if I find people who I have common cause with, whether they be on the left, center, or right, who are willing to speak out about what is going on, in how those norms are being undermined, and and in ways of somebody. Okay, so I was a PhD student in history. You don't have to look to sort of Weimar Germany. Look to like Rwanda. We've got hate radio on the right. We've got them working with somebody who is now in the White House, who controls an immense amount of power, and who quite clearly, in some fashion, is working with Vladimir Putin. And I will work with anybody. It doesn't mean I whitewash what they do. I'll just finish this little thing, and then you can say what you want to say, and then I'll say my other piece. But I will work with anybody right now, be they wherever they are on the spectrum. There's a few exceptions to that, probably not David Duke, but I look at this as protecting American democracy, and I don't think that that's being alarmist at this point.
All right. Look, all right. I don't have the same perspective that you do on the Russia stuff in terms of like the nature of the threat from Russia. But let me stipulate that for the sake of argument. Okay. That
can I ask you this? Sam, they've hacked into our infrastructure. They hacked into electoral databases of people's information.
I think that's very problematic.
You don't see that as a threat?
No. I think that's problematic, and I think we should deal with it. And I think frankly, there's a lot of threats to our voting processes. I mean, we know that Republicans just legislatively have disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, so there's no doubt.
And I've been out there on that site too with Ari Berman.
I know. I know. But I'm saying I'll stipulate for the sake of argument that it is a threat, okay? Because I don't want to litigate that. Yep. But here's the problem with David Frum, because this is the issue. The issue isn't whether or not there's something going on with Russia or that there's a threat or whatnot. Why won't you have David Duke on? You won't have David Duke on because he espouses some really bad ideas that you don't want in any way to have your credibility in any way rub off on him. And my argument about David Frum is this. I could throw a stick or a rock or anything, really, even I think like a balled up tissue, and find somebody to come on to talk about how bad Donald Trump is, about, and if I wanted to talk about how dangerous the Russian attacks are. But take, for instance, this. We got John Bolton, who you and I both think is a lunatic, okay? Who you and I both know. This is a guy who has written in the past 16 months a call to bomb Iran and a call to bomb North Korea. Now, David Frum, when he writes about Bolton, he can't bring himself to criticize Bolton because Bolton and he are very close in terms of their foreign policy perspectives. Bolton may not want to, transport democracy at the end of a gun, but he still wants to be there with a gun in all the same places. And so from Frum's perspective, this is okay. I mean, he talks about Bolton as a guy who, can get in there and maybe he doesn't praise him, but he certainly talks about this task of making sense of this chaos now falls to Bolton, a man of strong and certain opinions. A man of strong and certain opinions, right? Like, he's not going to go out there. He doesn't want to ruin his resistance cred, but not one adept at winning friends, convincing doubters, soothing opponents, or governing bureaucracy. The leaks of embarrassing information will gush. I mean, he doesn't even address in any way. This guy's David Frum's not afraid of expressing his opinion. He does not critique the policy, which is going to, you want to talk about danger. I mean, this country has been, is still suffering from, and not to mention the hundreds of thousands who were killed and the 4 million who were displaced, suffering from the Iraq war. This is this guy's foreign policy. Right. And when you have him on, for people who don't know this about David Frum,
I would ask you why Bolton's even there, Sam. He's there because Donald Trump won. And because all sorts of people, a lot of people on the left, equated Hillary Clinton, that quote-unquote fucking hawk, in Glenn Greenwald.
Wait a second.
To Donald Trump.
Bolton is there.
The same. And Jill Stein, who said,
okay.
But that's why Bolton.
Yeah, Bolton, but I'm not saying have Jill Stein or Glenn Greenwald on. This is This is not part of the. John Bolton is there in part because Barack Obama wouldn't hold the Bush administration to account, because people like David Frum and Bill Kristol and everybody else who was a war hawk at that time suffered no accountability. No accountability.
Right. And I was right there with you.
Yes.
I was right there with you.
And this guy
to suffer accountability at that moment.
He's a senior editor at The Atlantic. He was responsible for one of the gravest foreign policy disasters in the history of America. He is now a senior editor at the thing. They will not hold him to account for that. And so it's up to people like you and I who were there, who knew, to hold them to account by saying, I'm not going to give you any credibility by allowing you on any platform I have control over.
Okay, and that's fair. I have to decide at some point, what I consider to be the biggest threats right now. And to me, I guess, you're stipulating the Russia thing, but that's where our disagreement, our huge disagreement is. And that's maybe at the heart of it.
No, I'm saying I stipulate that because,
when they're getting into the electric grid in Vermont or New Hampshire, they can shut it down, Sam. To me, that is a major threat.
Tell me what you platforming, you giving David Frum credibility, what is that going to do to stop this threat?
Because he's written a book, his book Trumpocracy, a conservative book, and from that perspective, and is criticizing Donald Trump from that perspective. And I think
so he should go on. He should go on Eric Erickson's show.
Well,
but
I want to throw the damn guy out. I want to get the guy out of office. And the more people that say, I'm a conservative because so many people in this country are brainwashed into being a member of whatever party they're a member of, or if
How many conservatives
more people are willing
listen to
to
your
say,
show?
I'm sorry?
How many conservatives listen to your show? And
I have no idea.
I mean, this is the thing. I think what happens is there's a far more liberals who see that you're okaying David Frum, and now David Frum becomes a liberal hero. I mean, I sat on MSNBC, and they've done the same thing. They've platformed all these never-Trumpers who are former Republicans, and when John Bolton's name come up, they only have the people they have access to all basically say, well, he's a fairly reasonable guy, because because now this is how we all get amnesia. This is how we don't hold anybody to account. This is the functional equivalent of George W. Bush becoming now, sort of completely rehabilitated in the public's eye.
That's with George W. Bush, yeah. I mean, but George W. Bush was a policymaker, was the one who theoretically was actually making these decisions. And again...
Well, you don't think his advisors helped him get there?
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, David Frum wrote speeches and certainly came up with some nice phrases, but I guess I don't view that as on the same level. And it doesn't mean that I don't think that he was 100% wrong about that. But again, if you view the threat through the lens I view it through, and through a lot of people view it through, when people are literally breaking into your infrastructure of your country and have helped, clearly Donald Trump at this point, if you think Donald Trump didn't win this election based upon factors other than getting the most votes, I don't even know where to begin with that. I mean, we know about the data that Cambridge Analytica got. We know about
I think the fact is that Comey was more responsible for Trump's win.
He may have been.
And then Comey's getting the same rehabilitation treatment.
But I gotta say right now,
at least I can see Comey's value. I can see Comey's value in this fight a lot more than I can David Frum's.
Okay, well then let me ask you this question then, because you have lots of people on the show. Do you still have? Let's pull that name out. Do you still have Glenn Greenwald on this show?
It's been a long time since I've had Greenwald on the show, to be honest.
So I mean, is it okay that he speaks at the Cato Institute? Because when he has common cause with them, people that were run by the Kochs and want to cut all health care, is it okay when he gets on Twitter and vouches for Rand Paul, who believes that we should have a personhood law that should ban all abortion, and believes that there should be absolutely no laws around guns? Anybody should be able to get a machine gun when they want? So it's okay on the left for Glenn to work with whoever he wants to work with when he has common cause with them, but it's not okay for me to do the same thing. Is that
I would
legitimate?
I would say
why is rehabilitating Rand Paul?
No, wait a second. Why is that any better? Wait a second. First off, I don't think I've had Greenwald on since the election, and to the extent that he has done reporting that I think nobody else can or is doing, I could see value in having him on. I saw value in Frum's insight in having him on, and what he might know coming from a conservative perspective. What I know is last week, Tucker Carlson on his show on Fox talked about a demographic invasion of this country that really paralleled stuff that Hitler said in the 1930s. And guess who went on that show the same week and said great things about Tucker Carlson, the only one willing to talk about what's important right now, unlike MSNBC. Cliff, this is a straw man, because I haven't.
It's not a straw man. Why aren't the people that are asking you questions about me asking questions about him? Because they like his politics, so they're okay
I get people who do that all the time. Are you kidding? You don't think I get IMs that say, what the fuck is Glenn Greenwald doing?
Maybe.
And we talk about that too.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Fair enough.
That has not,
I'm just making the point that people on the left find common cause sometimes with people they disagree with.
Guess who I won't have on this show? There are people who I don't have on this show, and I critique on the left all the time because they do that bullshit. Of course. Okay. Of course. Do you know Jimmy Dore? I mean,
I was going to say, Like who? I may talk to David Frum. Jimmy Dore encouraged people not to vote for Hillary Clinton. The number of Jill Stein voters in Wisconsin was beyond that.
Criticizing Jimmy Dore is a cottage industry around these parts. All right, so believe me.
That's cool. I'd like to come on and do it more.
There's no time. Because we have so many other Jimmy Dore segments in the pipeline that we can't. No, I mean we do that. I mean that's we do that, of course, for the exact same.
In any case, I appreciate. Look, I'll say I appreciate this because I'm not so arrogant as to always think I'm right, and I had to ask myself questions. I do think I don't know if we have time, but there also was the fact that David was one of the people. And I do think this helps on the right, this is the second factor I told you earlier I was going to talk about, who right after Newtown came out and called for the kind of gun control measures that exist in Canada, went far beyond where even most Democrats are. And that was another reason I had him on after the school shooting, was to talk about that, because I think sometimes having people come from forming coalitions and having people coming from a conservative perspective on an issue you care deeply about can be helpful. And again, that's why I brought up the Glenn thing, because he thinks he agrees with Rand Paul on intelligence and spying. I agree with David on guns. I appreciate the fact that, that others see this differently, and it gives me things to think about. And again, I'm never so arrogant as to think that I always make the right decisions. So, I will defend this to some degree, and to some degree I'll reflect upon what you said.
Well,
I think, it's good to have friends ask questions.
I appreciate you coming on. You knew I wanted to bring this up, and a lot of people would just say, like, I can't do it. It's the night before Passover, and it's Good Friday, and I go.
Well, as I said to you, I wanted you to bring it up because
I have to practice.
We all have moments where we need. I told you I wanted you to bring it up. We all have moments where we need to have these discussions and have accountability. Because again, we try to make decisions in certain situations, and some of them are right and some of them are wrong. I still would argue there was some value to having David on, but I get where you come from.
Well, I
certainly.
I appreciate you talking about it, and I think that's very much to your credit, because a lot of people would just say, "Screw that! I don't want to do that."
Sham, for you, there's nothing but love. Of course.
Have a great Passover. I'm going on spring break. I really appreciate it, Cliffy. Always a pleasure.
Seriously.
All right.